You know, Amelia, I was just thinking the other day about how we spend so much time teaching people how to start conversations, but hardly anyone talks about how to end them gracefully.
That's so true. It's like we all learn how to start the car, but nobody teaches us how to park it properly.
Exactly. And you can end up in some pretty awkward situations if you don't know how to wrap things up politely.
Oh, hello everyone. Welcome to Learning English Studio. I'm Amelia.
And I'm James. We're so glad you could join us today for what I think is going to be a really helpful conversation.
Before we dive in, if you're enjoying our podcast and find it useful for your English learning journey, please consider subscribing to our channel and giving this episode a thumbs up. It really helps us reach more learners like you.
Absolutely. Every subscribe and like makes a huge difference and helps us keep creating content that supports you all.
So, James, today we're tackling something that I think every English learner has struggled with at some point: how to end a conversation politely in English.
Oh, this is such an important topic. You know, it's funny because ending conversations well is just as important as starting them, but it gets so much less attention.
That's so true. And it's a skill that can make the difference between leaving a positive impression or an awkward one.
Absolutely. I remember when I was learning English, I would sometimes just disappear from conversations. Or worse, I'd stand there awkwardly, not knowing how to exit.
Oh, I can totally relate. That moment when you've said everything you wanted to say, but you don't know how to gracefully end the interaction, it's like being stuck in conversational limbo.
Conversational limbo. I love that. That's exactly what it feels like. And what's interesting is that this isn't just a language learner problem. Even native speakers struggle with this sometimes.
That's such a comforting thought, isn't it? It reminds us that it's okay to feel a bit uncertain about ending conversations. We're all human, after all.
Exactly. So where should we begin? What's the first thing our listeners should know about ending conversations politely in English?
Well, I think we should start with the mindset. The key to ending conversations politely is to do so in a way that shows respect for the other person and leaves them feeling good about the interaction.
That's so important, isn't it? It's not just about escaping the conversation, but about closing it in a positive way.
Exactly, and I think there are several key elements to a good conversation ending. Things like giving a reason for leaving, expressing appreciation, and suggesting future contact when appropriate.
Those are great points, and I think it's also about timing, knowing when a conversation has naturally reached its conclusion.
Oh, absolutely. That's such a skill in itself, recognizing those natural ending points rather than letting conversations drag on or cutting them off abruptly.
So should we break this down into different situations, like ending conversations in different settings, formal, informal, with friends, with colleagues?
That's a great idea. Different contexts definitely call for slightly different approaches. Let's start with one of the most common scenarios our listeners might face: ending informal conversations with friends or acquaintances.
Perfect. That's probably where most people start, and it's a bit more relaxed than formal situations.
Definitely. In informal settings, you have more flexibility and can be more direct, but you still want to be polite and leave a good impression.
So what are some good phrases for ending informal conversations? I'm thinking of things you might say to a classmate or someone you meet at a social event.
Well, one of the most common and effective approaches is to simply state that you need to go somewhere or do something. For example, well, I should get going. I have to meet my friend in 10 minutes.
That's so natural because it gives a clear reason for ending the conversation. And it's not personal. You're not ending the conversation because you're bored, but because you have other commitments.
Exactly. And you can make it even warmer by adding something positive about the conversation. It was really great talking to you, but I need to run to my next class.
I like that combination. Acknowledging the value of the conversation while providing a reason for leaving. It's the perfect balance.
And what about when you're with friends and want to end the conversation or leave the group? That can sometimes feel a bit awkward too.
Oh, definitely. You don't want to seem like you're abandoning them. I think in that case, it's good to be inclusive in your exit.
What do you mean by inclusive?
Well, something like, "Hey everyone, it's been great hanging out, but I need to head out. I'll see you all tomorrow." It addresses the whole group and maintains the connection.
That's such a great approach. And you can even make specific plans if appropriate. This was fun. We should definitely do this again next week.
That's perfect because it shows you enjoyed their company and want to continue the relationship even though you're ending this particular interaction.
And I think it's worth mentioning that in informal settings, it's okay to be a bit more casual with your language. Things like, all right, I'm off, or catch you later, work well with friends.
That's so true. The level of formality definitely changes depending on who you're talking to. Speaking of which, what about more formal or professional settings? That's a whole different ballgame.
Oh, absolutely. Ending conversations in professional settings requires more care and attention to etiquette.
Right. In a work environment, how you end conversations can affect your professional relationships and even your career opportunities.
That's so true. So for professional settings, I think it's important to be a bit more formal and structured in your approach.
Can you give some examples of what that might sound like?
Sure. In a professional context, you might say something like, "Thank you for your time today. It was a productive discussion and I look forward to our next meeting."
That's very professional and respectful, and it acknowledges the value of the conversation while clearly indicating it's coming to an end.
Exactly. And you can add a specific reference to future interaction if appropriate. "I'll send you that report we discussed by the end of the day. Have a great afternoon."
That's perfect because it provides closure and also shows follow-through on your commitments. It's professional and reliable.
And what about ending conversations at networking events or professional conferences? Those can be tricky because you want to meet multiple people but don't want to seem rude.
Oh, those are definitely challenging. You're trying to balance making connections with being respectful of people's time, including your own.
Exactly. In those situations, I think it's helpful to acknowledge the value of the conversation and express interest in future contact.
So something like, "It was a pleasure meeting you and learning about your work. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn and continue our discussion sometime."
That's perfect. It's polite, professional, and opens the door for future communication without creating an obligation to continue the current conversation indefinitely.
And I think it's important in professional settings to end with a positive closing. "Have a great day," or "enjoy your weekend" adds a nice touch of warmth.
Absolutely. Those small courtesies can make a big difference in how you're perceived professionally.
So we've covered informal and professional settings. What about ending conversations with strangers or in more casual public settings?
Oh, that's another interesting scenario. Ending conversations with strangers requires a delicate balance. You want to be polite, but also maintain appropriate boundaries.
Right. You might have a lovely chat with someone in a queue or at a cafe, but you don't necessarily want to continue the conversation indefinitely.
Exactly. And in those situations, I think it's best to keep it simple and friendly without making promises you don't intend to keep.
So what would be a good way to end a conversation with someone you've just met in a public setting?
Something like, "Well, it was really nice chatting with you. Enjoy the rest of your day," is simple, polite, and doesn't create any expectations for future contact.
That's perfect because it's warm and friendly, but also clearly signals the end of the interaction. And if the person seems interested in continuing the connection, you can decide if you want to exchange contact information, but there's no obligation to do so. That's such an important point. It's okay to have a pleasant, brief conversation and then go your separate ways. Not every interaction needs to lead to a lasting connection.
Exactly. And I think it's worth mentioning that body language plays a big role in signaling that a conversation is ending, even before you say anything.
Oh, that's such a good point. Things like starting to turn away, checking your watch, or gathering your belongings can all signal that you're preparing to leave.
Exactly. And these nonverbal cues can help make the verbal transition smoother because the other person already has an inkling that the conversation is coming to an end.
That's so true. It's like giving a little warning before the actual ending arrives.
That's a great way to put it. A little warning before the ending arrives.
So we've covered different settings, but what about different mediums, like phone conversations or online chats? Those have their own etiquette too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Phone conversations and online chats have their own unique considerations when it comes to ending them politely.
Let's start with phone conversations. I think those can be tricky because you don't have the visual cues you have in person.
That's so true. On the phone, you have to rely more on verbal cues to signal that a conversation is coming to an end.
So what are some good ways to end phone conversations politely?
Well, similar to in-person conversations, you can give a reason for ending. "I'm sorry to cut this short, but I have another call coming in."
That's a classic and effective approach. And you can add a positive note about the conversation. "It was great to catch up with you, but I need to run to an appointment now."
Exactly. And I think it's especially important on the phone to explicitly signal the ending with phrases like, well, I'll let you go now, or I should probably get off the phone.
That's so true, because without visual cues, people might not realize you're trying to end the conversation unless you state it more directly.
And what about online conversations? Those have their own unique challenges and opportunities.
Oh, definitely. Online conversations can range from quick text exchanges to longer video calls, and each might require a slightly different approach to ending them.
That's so true. For text-based conversations, you have more time to craft your response, but you also miss out on tone of voice and other verbal cues.
So for text conversations, what works well?
I think for text chats, it's helpful to be clear about when you're signing off. Phrases like, gotta run now, talk to you later, or it was great chatting, have a good night, work well.
And emojis can help convey tone in text conversations, can't they? A simple smiley face or thumbs up can soften the ending.
Absolutely. Emojis can add warmth and friendliness to text-based conversation endings, but it's important to use them appropriately based on the relationship and context.
That's so true. You probably wouldn't use a lot of emojis in a professional text exchange, but they're perfect for casual conversations with friends.
Exactly. And for video calls, you have the visual cues back, but there are still some specific considerations.
Like what?
Well, with video calls, there's often the technical aspect to consider, making sure you end the call properly without accidentally hanging up on someone mid-sentence.
Yes, that's definitely a concern. Wait, don't hang up yet.
Exactly. And I think it's helpful to verbally signal the end of a video call before clicking the end button. Something like, well, it was great to see you. I'll let you go now. Bye.
That's perfect, because it gives the other person a moment to say their final goodbyes too, rather than an abrupt screen going black.
Exactly. And whether it's phone, text, or video, I think the same basic principles apply. Be clear, be polite, and end on a positive note.
That's such a great summary of the core principles. So we've covered different settings and different mediums. Are there any common mistakes or pitfalls that learners should be aware of when ending conversations?
Oh, that's such an important question. There are definitely some common mistakes that can make ending conversations awkward or even unintentionally rude.
Like what? What should people be careful to avoid?
Well, one common mistake is ending conversations too abruptly without any warning or transition. Just suddenly saying bye and walking away can feel jarring.
That's so true. It's like slamming a door instead of closing it gently. It leaves the other person feeling a bit shocked.
Exactly. And another mistake is making up obviously fake excuses to end a conversation. People can usually tell when you're not being genuine.
Oh, that's such a good point. I have to go. Feed my cat when you don't even have a cat doesn't really work, does it?
Definitely not. And it can actually make the other person feel bad, like they've bored you so much that you had to invent an escape plan.
That's such a great insight. So honesty, even if it's just, I need to get going, is better than a complicated lie.
Exactly. And I think another common mistake is not acknowledging the value of the conversation before ending it. Just ending without any positive reflection can make the other person feel like you didn't enjoy talking to them.
That's so true. Even a simple, it was nice talking to you, can make such a difference in how the ending is perceived.
Absolutely. And I think another mistake is making promises you don't intend to keep, like saying, let's definitely meet up soon when you have no intention of doing so.
Oh, that's such an important point. It might seem polite in the moment, but it creates false expectations and can lead to awkwardness later.
Exactly. It's better to be genuine and say something like, it was great meeting you, without making specific plans you're not committed to.
That's such wise advice. So we should focus on being genuine, clear, and considerate in how we end conversations.
Absolutely. And I think it's also worth mentioning that cultural differences can play a role in how conversations are ended.
Oh, that's such an important point. Different cultures have different expectations about conversation length and ending etiquette.
Exactly. In some cultures, it's normal to have quite lengthy goodbyes with multiple rounds of, well, I should go. Oh, okay, if you must, before actually parting ways.
That's so true. And in other cultures, a more direct and brief ending is considered more polite because it doesn't waste people's time.
Exactly. So it's helpful to be aware of these cultural differences, especially when interacting with people from backgrounds different from your own.
That's such valuable advice. Being culturally sensitive in how we end conversations can prevent misunderstandings and show respect for others' communication styles.
Absolutely. And I think it's also worth noting that ending conversations politely becomes easier with practice, just like any other communication skill.
That's so true. The more you practice ending conversations in different situations, the more natural and confident you'll become.
Exactly. And I think it's helpful to have a few go-to phrases for different situations so you're not caught off guard when you need to end a conversation.
That's such a practical tip. Having some ready-made endings in your conversational toolkit can reduce anxiety and make you feel more prepared.
Absolutely. And I think it's also reassuring to remember that most people understand that conversations need to end. They're not expecting to talk forever.
That's such a comforting thought. It takes the pressure off, doesn't it? Knowing that the other person probably also needs to move on with their day.
Exactly. And I think it's helpful to remember that ending conversations politely is actually a sign of social intelligence and respect for others' time.
That's so true. It shows that you value both your time and the other person's time, and that you care about leaving a positive impression.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, I'd love to hear if you have any final tips or insights, James, based on your experience with ending conversations in English.
I think the biggest thing for me was realizing that it's okay to end conversations. I used to feel guilty or rude for wanting to move on, but then I realized that conversations naturally have a beginning, middle, and end.
That's such a valuable insight. It reframes ending conversations not as a rejection, but as a natural part of the communication process.
Exactly, and I learned that people generally appreciate a clear, polite ending more than they enjoy a conversation that drags on past its natural conclusion.
That's so true. We've all been in those conversations that have gone on too long, secretly wishing someone would end them.
Absolutely, and I think my final tip would be to pay attention to the other person's cues. Sometimes they're trying to end the conversation too, and if you're attuned to that, you can make it a smooth, mutual ending.
That's such brilliant advice. It becomes a collaborative process rather than one person abruptly ending things.
Exactly. What about you, Amelia? Any final thoughts to share with our listeners?
I think my biggest realization was that the way you end a conversation can leave a lasting impression. People might not remember every detail of what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel when you parted ways.
That's so beautiful and true. The final impression really does matter.
And I want to encourage our listeners to be kind to themselves as they practice this skill. It's okay if it feels awkward at first. Every conversation is an opportunity to practice and improve.
That's such an important message. Progress, not perfection, right?
Right. And remember, ending conversations politely is a skill that will serve you well in all areas of your life, personal, professional, and social.
That's so true. It's one of those fundamental communication skills that has a ripple effect on all your relationships.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. I hope our listeners feel more equipped and confident about ending conversations politely in English.
Absolutely. And now, as we promised, we'd love to engage with our listeners directly. We have a little interactive segment for you all.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you. Here's what we're thinking. Why don't you share with us your favorite way to end a conversation in English?
That's a great idea. You can comment below with a phrase or question you've used successfully to end a conversation in English. It could be something formal or informal, simple or creative.
And if you're still building your confidence, you can tell us which conversation ending scenario feels most challenging to you. Is it ending professional conversations, conversations with strangers, or maybe online conversations?
Or here's a fun one. Which approach do you prefer? A, giving a specific reason for leaving. B, making future plans. Or C, using a simple friendly closing like, "It was great talking to you."
Ooh, I like that one. Comment with your choice, A, B, or C, and tell us why it works for you. We're so curious to hear what our listeners think.
And don't forget, practicing these conversation endings with friends or language partners can help build your confidence before trying them in real-life situations.
That's such a great tip. Practice makes progress, as we like to say here at Learning English Studio.
Absolutely. And we'll be reading your comments and maybe even sharing some of your favorite conversation endings in a future episode, so don't be shy.
We can't wait to hear from you all. Your experiences and insights help make our community stronger and support other English learners.
That's so true. We learn best when we learn together.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, but we'll be back next week with another helpful topic to support your English learning journey.
Thank you all for listening, and remember, ending a conversation politely is a skill that shows respect and leaves a positive impression.
Until next time, keep practicing, stay confident, and don't be afraid to end those conversations gracefully.
Bye for now, everyone.
Goodbye.